Charting Toward Intimacy covers mature topics. Listener discretion is advised. Charting Toward Intimacy covers mature topics. Listener discretion is advised. Hey there, welcome to Charting Toward Intimacy, where we're expanding the natural family planning conversation. I'm your host, Ellen Holloway. In this last episode of our Advent series, we are joined by Joe and Janessa Nufable. They have each individually been on an episode, but I am so excited to welcome them on this episode together to share about their NFP journey and this week's topic, which is how love grows with NFP. Joe and Janessa are good friends of mine, Bay Area natives, and love serving God in ministry roles. I met Joe and Janessa serving in youth ministry, and we've continued to serve in different roles over the years together. And with that, let's get started. Well, welcome back, Joe and Janessa. We've had you both individually on different episodes. So I'm really excited to have you both together on an episode.
Yeah. Thank you for having us.
Thanks for having us together.
Well, being friends of mine, I feel like it's sort of a requirement to just get like arm wrestled into being on the podcast. So thanks for agreeing.
And there were like so many other ridiculous episode ideas that we had, but this is a good one. I'm glad we're doing this together. But yeah, this will be cool.
The episode that Joe, you and I did, is prayer a part of your foreplay? That one is really, it's up there on one of the most downloaded episodes. And I think it's just because of the title.
I think it's just because of the title. We didn't do it justice, I don't think.
Maybe we should redo that episode.
Maybe.
All right. Well, today we are talking about, this is the fourth and final episode in our Advent series. And this week's theme is love. So we're talking about how love grows with natural family planning. So can you guys start by sharing a little bit about your NFP journey?
Yeah, so I could start it off.
Why not?
So like we were dating for a while. I mean, before we got engaged, we were dating for about 7 years. And so, from dating that long, you kind of talk about what the future holds and, talk about or planning or thinking about marriage and all that. And I had a much different understanding of what it meant to be, Catholic and be married and what your sex life would be like. And so from how I understood it, it's like, oh yeah, like once you're married, you can have sex and like you don't use contraceptives. So I understood that. But there's like other things that you can potentially get away with or to avoid pregnancies and stuff. So I thought like, hey, it's all okay, right? It wasn't until Joe was listening to Theology of the Body or like a Matt Fradd talk or something where he learned about NFP and he told me about it. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. And then I did my own research and I was like, oh, wow, this is really interesting and kind of sounds hard. But then, it's like, well, like this is who we are as Catholics. And if this is something that if we want to have a fruitful marriage and all the benefits of what NFP, has, it's like, all right, we're going to do this. So, I mean, that's like my part or my journey, I guess. He might have a different way of showing it.
Our journey is intertwined. So, when I guess I was younger, I was just like, okay, you're married, or when you get married, you could, have all the sex you want and stuff. And okay, like maybe you can't use condoms and you can't use contraceptives. Like, I don't know, like is pull out okay? Or, like it's, and those are big questions. And I just remember like, as I was encountering the theology of the body, I was just like, man, like this is like really profound and it's very theological. Like, where does this get practical, And what does that mean for, I guess, how a husband and wife live out their sexuality and stuff like that, And yeah, so I listened to a talk and it was explained. And I just remember like, just like the sigh of relief. I was like, wow, okay. So like, I guess you can have sex, and it's not just avoiding getting pregnant, but there's like some control and mastery to it, or some discipline, and it's definitely a lot harder than that sounded. But in my mind, I was just like, wow, there's a solution to this problem, right? And I never brought it up to Janessa until I guess we got engaged. Yeah. So it was like a secret that I was keeping. I was like, like I got something to tell you about. And
I wish he would have told me beforehand.
That would have been smart. Yeah, that would have been smart. But I was just like, all right, since like you're engaged to me now, like we should like talk about the terms of this. No,
let's talk about the terms of this engagement here.
No, but we did talk about like marriage prep and then NFP, and then she did the research, and then I remember like she was like, "Wow, this sounds really hard," but I was like, "But sex, like, how is this gonna work?" And I had a total guy approach to it, and she definitely had the more like realistic approach. It just seemed like a solution to me. It wasn't until we started learning about it that it really became like a growth experience and a formative experience, and like my own heart as a man and a husband was being formed.
Awesome. Thank you guys for sharing. I want to touch on something you said, Joe, about and you didn't outright say this, but this is what came into my mind because I think I had the same thought. Was like before you learn that NFP exists, it's like, okay, so I'm Catholic and I can't use contraception. So that means like I just abstain until I want to have a kid. That's the only option, clearly.
Right.
And, it's such a detriment to our young people that we don't talk about NFP starting in junior high. And of course, you don't need to teach junior high kids like the exact methods or the rules based on that, but you can talk about it. You can make sure they know it exists.
Yeah. And you and I were both, serving in youth ministry together. When we've brought it up casually, or, we've like intertwined it in some catechesis or some talk, or, someone would ask about it and you would see them light up like, and I think that's what we all experience when we come to discover this gift that science and the church promotes. It opens up possibilities, and praise God, like we didn't have any issues where we really needed to depend on NFP to conceive a child, but I remember what I was thinking before marriage. I was like, marriage is going to be tough, and I was thinking about sex. Like as if sex was going to be some issue in marriage. Like I was like, how do we solve this problem of being able to have sex and enjoy it, and all that.
Yeah.
And NFP just turned out to be a gift, and it opened my mind and opened my heart, and it enlightened us a lot.
Yeah, I think that's it's so common. It's like when you learn about NFP for the first time, it's just so eye-opening, and it's like, why didn't I know this before? I mean, that's the question that I hear from like clients when I'm teaching. It's, well, how did we not know this was how this works? How did we not know how the female body works and the fertility cycle works?
Totally.
And these are big questions that I don't have answers to.
Yeah.
All right. So going back to your story, what would you say has been your biggest struggle with natural family planning?
Yeah, I think, well, one, just getting used to it, we got it started and we knew it was something we had to do. It definitely felt like a task at first, it definitely felt like something we really had to work through. And there is that discipline, right? And like there'd be some times where like I would remind like, oh, you're checking your temperature and yada yada, and it seemed annoying, right? Like it seemed annoying to talk about, and that was tough because it's like, yeah, it in idea and theory is like, wow, this is a great gift, and it opens up possibilities. It really enlightens, but the practice of it just seems super annoying to us. And at least that's how like I interpreted, how we were interacting with it. Yeah, and it's tough because we were worried about like, are we doing it right? And there was even that fear, like imagine there were times where we were like afraid, like, oh, like maybe we shouldn't tonight. Maybe we'll and it's like when you worry like that, it begins to weigh down on the relationship. And again, like it's part of the journey, and it's not that I didn't like it. There was a lot of growth that happened from that, but it really was a struggle, at first.
Yeah. Joe, sorry, I want to jump in really quick before you answer, Janessa. You bring up a really good point, Joe. We've mentioned on the podcast before the kind of the joke of like, oh, if you can talk about cervical mucus with someone, you can talk about anything. But we haven't really talked about the fact that there is a learning period when you're learning natural family planning, and not just learning the method itself. Yes, of course, there is a period of learning for that. But there is a period of learning how to communicate with your spouse in that way.
Totally.
And it's hard. It is really deep and different conversations than our secular world endorses.
Right.
And we're suddenly thrust into these, these conversations about cervical mucus. And it's like, maybe we're not quite comfortable with that yet. And that's completely valid, that takes some time to get comfortable to have those conversations with each other.
Right. And especially like as a male, like I like to just separate things, you know what I mean? Like, oh, this is our spousal relationship, but I'm going to look at this homework right now. Like, are we doing this? Because we'll get to the, NFP is definitely for our, spousal relationship. I just want to make sure logistically we have this squared away, right? Like, I just really
wanted to check the box.
Yeah, and just separating the two, but they shouldn't, right? Like you're working that together, and I guess because we practiced NFP as we were like learning how to be a married couple, so there's like that new dynamic. And also this element of NFP, and you're working on those things together, which I'm grateful that it happened that way. But it was a huge learning curve on top of being married,
right?
Or learning how to be married.
Yeah. To piggyback on that, that's what I was going to mention. Actually, is just the fact that prior to getting married, like he and I didn't live with anybody else, or and he and I didn't live with each other. And so when we moved in together after we got married, like getting used to that dynamic. And then here is someone that I'm like waking up to every morning, and me having to check my temperature, and like him not really having a very big part like at first, because like I just knew like I had to take my temperature and like mark it down and put it in my app and all that stuff. But then what I would get from him was just the questions of like, so are we good? Like,
oh my gosh, this is the exact same. Yeah. Okay. Sorry.
So and then so that was the part that was kind of frustrating in the struggle, because it's like, yes, I know, like he's not just asking that because he's only wanting what he wants, or it's not just that, but there'd be moments where it'd kind of feel like that, because here I am putting in all this work, which is taking my temperature every single morning at the same exact time. And we tried the method that you recommended to us, where I put the thermometer on his side of the bed and wake him up, but then he wouldn't wake up, and I'm like, I got to take it now and all that stuff. So it's just like, forget it. I'll just keep it on my side and take my temperature, and you just go to sleep.
Janessa, I got to admit, I switched the thermometer over to my side of the bed too. I couldn't do it anymore.
Yeah. Cause it's hard. Like, like I'm trying to like stay calm, right? Cause the temperature or your body has to be in a relaxed state and all that stuff. And it's just like, here I am trying to like slowly poke him or whatever. Get up. Like I need my thermometer.
For our listeners, what we're explaining is with the symptothermal method, you need to take your temperature at the same time every morning, right when you wake up. And obviously you don't want to like energize yourself too much or you're going to raise your basal body temperature. But a suggestion that I had gotten when I was learning natural family planning was to give the thermometer to my husband, Kurt. And in the morning when the alarm clock would go off, he would hand me the thermometer. I would take my temperature, give the thermometer back to him, and he would record it, which, you know, sure, in a perfect, like, I don't know, Mary and Joseph way, like that might work, but
yeah,
we're human.
Yeah, it didn't work. I think you did it like a few times and I was like, forget this.
I was like totally down to like, yeah, I'll do that. That sounds cool. Like we're totally a team. And no, I sucked at it. I was terrible.
And it's really the truth that a lot of, you know, natural family planning, the fertility awareness side of it falls on the woman because you are tracking the woman's fertility cycle. Natural family planning has to do with the shared fertility. We don't have to track the male fertility because they're always fertile.
Yeah.
I mean, we'd just draw a straight line.
Yeah.
And so, you know, that burden really falls on the woman for, you know, whatever those measurements are, whether it's mucus only, whether you're, you know, doing temperature and mucus or sensation or, you know, using a monitor. And there is that learning curve for a couple to learn, you know, how can this be something that we do together? Because Janessa, you know, when I was saying same, that feeling that like I was recording everything and I was like, you know, I was becoming this gatekeeper and Kurt would just say, hey, is it a go night tonight? And I'd be like, no, it's not. And learning to tell my husband, you can't ask like that because it makes me feel like a gatekeeper. It makes me feel like I'm saying no. You need to ask differently. I need you to, you know, support me in this. I need you to say, hey, can I look at your chart and interpret it? And, you know, can we talk about what your observations were? And just changing that conversation. And ladies, if you feel like you're in the same situation that Janessa and I both found ourselves in, like, please ask your partner to ask you different kinds of questions and just really sit down and talk about it and how you can feel more empowered and how then you as a couple can feel more empowered in natural family planning. Yeah. All right, I'll step off my soapbox now. All right, so what would you say has been your favorite fruit of using natural family planning in your marriage?
Well, my favorite fruit is our baby. Yeah, so Joe and I are pregnant. We're 22 weeks pregnant today, actually.
Yeah, we are.
And yeah, so I mean, like, that's like obviously our favorite fruit, you know, because it's an NFP baby. It's a baby that we, you know, postponed for a while, you know, during the first year of our marriage. And then we had the conversation of, you know, I think this is what we're being called to, like, this has been on our hearts. And despite this pandemic, like, are we gonna go for this? And well, God had his way and here it is. So that's, well, I guess our favorite fruit, but there are many other fruits too. Mm-hmm. I think the other fruit, at least from what I like experienced doing NFP together, is like we really had to find a way to be like lighthearted through it all. Because, you know, like we talked about the struggles and the frustrations and, you know, the complications, especially for like your first year of marriage and just kind of getting used to the idea of you are now husband and wife, not just, you know, Joe and Janessa. And so we got to really find our ways to be playful with one another, like find ways where we can communicate, like it is a go night, or like do things that when we couldn't, when we were trying to postpone a pregnancy, we found ways of just spending time with one another, but still being intimate, you know, with each other in a way that's not like sexual, but just intimate as husband and wife and really building our relationship. And so I think that is, you know, one of the fruits.
Like NFPs are really good inside joke for couples.
Yeah.
Right? Like you know something funny that other people don't, you know, and then there's just like little things that kind of make you laugh. that people don't understand that you do. And it's a total inside joke. I laugh about it sometimes in my head, or like, when people talk about kids here, like trying to have kids, and like a lot of our friends and family, like my cousins, like our peer group is in the same situation. We just have a different perspective on all of it, and it's so funny. Like when we'll get home and we'll kind of like debrief or like just talk about like our interactions with other people. And it's like the funny things that that come up, like, like when people, were first finding out that we were doing NFP, it was just so funny, like how people reacted to us,
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
We would talk about it, and it's just, it's something to laugh at. So definitely funny conversations that come up from it. I think NFP really, it helped us to discern parenthood. Like it really made the prayer process of like, we're called to be parents, like I remember like this conversation Janessa and I had, and she was just like, because obviously in our relationship, I desired to be the parent. I mean, you know me, Ellen, like I desired kids like for so long.
You've been talking about kids since I met you.
Yeah, and she was just super weary about it. And I just remember like her honesty one time, just like we're gonna have this together. But and we'll know when we're called to it, and that drew us so closer, because it really deepened our prayer lives and a new depth of our prayer lives together, shared prayer lives. And then just like, it really allowed us to collaborate with God's creative power, like he shared that power, that ability with us. And we were talking about it, we were planning it and as best as we could, and we were never perfect at NFP, and our prayer lives aren't perfect, far from it. But I know it definitely helped spark like deep conversations about our prayer lives. And it got us to talk about the way we talk to each other. It helped us communicate a lot, especially in our first year. It was a struggle, but it really helped us improve the way we communicate. And those are big fruits in addition to the baby.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just thinking the title of this episode is Love Grows with NFP. And like literally love is growing inside of you right now, Janessa.
Growing.
And it's just really cool.
And love kicks.
And love kicks.
And love makes her vomit. And love makes
all the love.
Maybe I should put up parentheses at the end of the title, like love grows with NFP. And it kicks and makes you vomit and
and needs diapers and
that might be a little weird.
Yeah.
All right. So with that topic of love for this episode, what are some ways that you would say love for your spouse has grown with your use of NFP?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Her feminine genius, it really showed, like, from when we were planning and discerning parenthood and when we found out we were parents. There's like little pep talks like Janessa needs to give me, and going back to the one where she kind of gave us the reassurance, like, hey, like, we're gonna be parents, like, you're gonna be a dad. I'm gonna give that to you, but when we're ready, when we're called to it, and when she does that, it's like, man, like, it just makes you like want to, like, it feels like you could run through a brick wall. Do you know what I mean? Like, you could do anything in life when your wife supports you and gives you that encouragement and that reassurance. Like, I've desired nothing more in life than to be a dad. Yeah, and people will say that's crazy. There's so many other things I want to accomplish in life, but at the top of it all, like fatherhood is like something I've desired and look forward to the most in life. And yeah, like she's just like been so strong in being the bearer of that desire, and not the gatekeeper, but like the gift giver of that, and um it just took so much discipline and hard work, and really glad I got to do it with her, because she's been super encouraging. And um yeah, like not that I don't worry about parenthood, but like with just so much of the things we've talked about because of NFP, and so many things that we've grown through in our relationship, because it forces that level of communication, that level of intimacy. It's like, it was cool. Like, at least I got her, you know what I mean? And we've got a lot of stuff figured out, not everything, but we've got a good amount of stuff figured out. And we know this baby's loved, and it's, she definitely supported a lot of that growth. She carried a lot of that growth in this relationship. I just suggested NFP, like that's all I really did. But she's definitely been like the one pushing it forward in our relationship. So yeah, that's what I got to say about you, boo.
See what I deal with. Yeah. So what, like some ways, love for my husband, has grown with NFP. I think NFP, like vulnerability has never really been the easiest thing for me, just in general. And so
welcome to a podcast episode where I'm asking you to talk about your sex life.
Exactly. Well, I could thank NFP for that, because, like with NFP, you literally bear it all to your husband, to your spouse, right? Like they know the ins and outs of everything that you're experiencing, which, that was also part of like the growth and the struggle when we first started, because I just had to get used to the fact that I had to let him in that much. I thought I did a good job when we were dating and we were engaged, but like this was just a whole different ball game. And so I really had to, like let myself be so vulnerable and have that, like, even like a more intense trust with him. And so, like, especially when we found out like we were pregnant, right? I mean, because obviously we planned it, but I don't think anything really prepares you for when you actually find out that you're pregnant. It's like, because when you see those 2 strips on the stick, you're like, oh shoot, this is like real. Like this is crazy.
Yeah, it's like even when you like kind of know, you're like, I'm pretty sure that I am pregnant. And this was my experience. And you like look at the test, it's like, oh my gosh, I actually am. It feels so totally different.
Yeah, exactly. And so, when I first found out, like I kind of had a moment of just, oh, like, okay, this is real. And when I shared that with him, and I'm like having a kind of a freak out, he was very reassuring to me. And it's just like, hey, like, we got this. This is what we wanted. And this is what God wants us to have. And we can do this. And so, like, I guess being that, like having all those moments of vulnerability and then just hearing that, like, I guess the old me would just be like, I don't know. Like, I don't think we can do this. Like, this is crazy. Like, are you sure we can do this? I'd probably be filled with so much more doubt. But, that night when we found out and him reassuring me, it's kind of like, okay, like, yeah, you're right. We're going to do this. Like, we can do it. Yeah. And I think it just, I don't like, again, the baby being the fruit of NFP, like we love this baby so much already. And with that, like our love for one another, like grows even more, because this is what we created out of our love. And so the fact that we created this child makes me want to love him even more, right, than just before, getting pregnant. And I thought like I loved him all, as much as I could already, but that envelope just keeps getting pushed higher and higher because, it's with this baby. Like I don't know, like you just love each other more. I don't know. I can't try to
love grows, right?
Yeah, it just keeps growing. You know, you think there's a cap, but there's not. It just you keep growing in this love for one another. And, you know, I can only imagine as the child grows and as you watch your child grow, like especially you, Ellen, and watching Emma grow, that, you know, just the fact that that's something that you and Kurt created and it's physically manifested into Emma and, you know, it's going to be manifested in this child when it comes out.
Yeah. You know, something that you mentioned that I want to reiterate, because it was just like so good, was that vulnerability that you're just forced to have when you use natural family planning. And we've mentioned the pillars of theology of the body, the free, oh my gosh, I can't even say it, the free, total, faithful, and fruitful love, and how using fertility awareness to plan your family just so allows all four of those things to be present in your marriage.
Mm-hmm. Well, it integrates it.
Yeah.
Like it integrates it. Like it's not just one or the other. Like they all come together in a forceful way. You know,
yes,
like
sometimes forceful, sometimes uncomfortable.
Yeah, you know, but you cooperate with it. But it just you just have to, you know, to make it work. And yeah.
Exactly. And then something else I wanted to mention, just the love grows. We were joking about how love grows, but just what you're experiencing in being pregnant and watching your love grow, and how that is just a window into the infinite love of our Father, and
Mm-hmm.
how we can start to understand that as we grow closer to our spouse, and as we cooperate with his perfect design, and as we cooperate with his ability to create life, and just how we can learn so much more about our God with, all of these things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, we could totally nerd out about. I mean,
I know we could keep going, but
yeah.
Another episode.
Exactly.
All right, so let's go ahead and kind of wrap ourselves up. My last question that I have for you guys is, what ideas or tips do you have for couples that are struggling with NFP?
Well, one, tell your significant other about it if you know about it. I wish you would have told me
especially
earlier.
If you're not married yet. Like tell them now.
Yeah, don't keep it a secret. If you're interested in it, like talk about it as early as you can. But because Joe only told me around the time that we got engaged, I obviously had to do a lot more research and kind of had to have that understanding the way that he had it when he was listening to the talks and reading more into theology of the body. So one of the things that I did, and I highly recommend, is find something for yourself. So whether you're male or female, whichever, find something that you can do on your own to just learn about it, what works for you. And so what I did, which Ellen joined me in, is we attended this theology of the body class, seminar class thing. It was a weekly class that it was a program.
Yeah, it was 6 or 8 weeks or something like that.
Yeah. And it broke down what theology of the body was and bite sizes. And to me, that was very helpful because I'm someone that needs time to process. And so if you're someone who needs to process and learn how it's going to fit into your life and learn what God is calling you to do. I think learning it in that way was really helpful for me. And do it with people who either know about NFP or are interested in NFP, because it was very helpful to have somebody to talk to about it. And so that any questions that you have, it's kind of you have that dialogue, someone that's other than a spouse or a significant other that you're hoping to marry and practice NFP with one day.
Yeah, definitely.
It's good to have people to talk to about it. You know, where it's not in your relationship, but, you know, maybe someone that's already experienced it, or is going through it at the same time. Yeah, I think that was really helpful for me to have people to talk to.
Yeah. I'd say as much as it's a balance from what Janessa was saying. As much as you ought to learn it on an individual level, you have to internalize it in your own way. You know, like, we really enjoyed the fact that we had community that we could talk about this with. And that people that I could talk about it from a male perspective. So I'd bring it up with Kurt, or, you know, joke about it with Kurt. And, you know, Janessa had you, and yeah, that was a huge gift. And it definitely made it comfortable for us in our time of engagement. You know, I definitely didn't just want to like make NFP just something that, you know, I encouraged to Janessa, but something she wanted on her own. And I don't think it would have been as easy if she didn't have friends who talked about it, who she could talk about it with. Yeah, because you don't want to be so like different. You don't want to be so like, you don't want to look weird compared to everybody else. You know what I mean? And so if you're just constantly having to explain yourself or to teach people about it, but you don't get that relatability or the ability to share those experiences with, like, you don't have to like lay it all out, you know what I mean? Like, don't share everything, you know, but I'm saying, like, you could share just how you're facing it. And it was definitely powerful for me. Like, when another guy would be like, yeah, bro, like, I hear what you're saying. You know, just something like that.
Right.
It's like, wow, like, you know what I'm going through. Cool. And that would really give me some encouragement.
And this is a soapbox that I stand on a lot, is do not let yourself stay on an NFP island where it's just you and your spouse. Like, find someone, and it doesn't even have to be someone like in your community. There are so many other Catholics and non-Catholics practicing, you know, fertility awareness-based methods. And you can find support groups on Facebook and find people on Instagram. But have someone to reach out to, have someone to talk to, because Joe, what you mentioned of just, it was easier for you guys in certain ways to have, you know, other people to talk to about NFP. Kurt and I had almost the exact opposite issue. When we started using NFP, we knew no one. And, you know, we were sitting on an NFP island and we had no idea what to do.
Right. Yeah, that and it's like with everything else in life, or at least my approach, it's like, try not to take yourself too seriously. You know what I mean? Like,
take NFP seriously.
Take NFP very seriously. Take your spouse seriously. You know what I mean? But like, there are just a lot of opportunities to laugh at each other.
Yeah.
Because of NFP, or laugh at yourself. You know, I think NFP puts you very in touch with your imperfections and your spouse's imperfections, and it takes a lot of grace. NFP just takes so much grace, and when you recognize that, I think it's like you kind of just have to laugh at yourself and just like, man, this is really not easy, and you're not going to be perfect at it, but you get into it together, and so like it being a grace-filled process kind of should make it a lighthearted process. At least that's, you know, I realize there are people who may not see it that way, but if that resonates with you, I'm speaking to you, because I got super nervous about it, you know, and again, it started off very frustrating for us, but I'm really glad we are more lighthearted about it now.
Yeah.
You know,
on a like slight side, one of the ways like I try to be lighthearted and kind of have fun, like way back when, before we were married and we were learning about NFP, you know, Joe had joked saying like, oh, maybe we should like keep a bowl on like the counter of our place or something. And then if it's like a go time for us to have sex but to postpone the pregnancy, you could put like a green marble because it's like a go time, and then like a red marble where it's like a no-go time.
Like find a game or something.
And so one day when I was like charting it, I knew it was a go time for us to postpone pregnancy. Well, we didn't have marbles, but I sent him I downloaded an image off Google of a green marble and I sent it to him randomly. And he like totally forgot that he mentioned that. And so he was just like, why are you sending this to me? And I'm like, think about it. And
what's up with the marbles?
and then I just kept sending him different like pictures of marbles, like marbles in a bowl, like a marble on the ground. And he just had no idea. And I was like, don't you remember when you talked about this? And he's like, oh, I totally. And then, obviously got excited and we're like, cool, it's a go night tonight. So like things like that, where you can, be like lighthearted and not just like, okay, it's a go time. Like, let's do this, so it's not so like regimented and stressful. You can have those kinds of fun moments. And
the idea sounds so stupid, but the fact like it's a game, like when you've made that the habit, like, again, like find your own game, but it creates that little inside joke that no one else understands. And it's something you laugh about and it's something you enjoy together. Again, like the idea of marbles sounds so stupid. I actually heard it from another person and I was just like, oh, whatever. And I joked about it. And the fact that happened, I was just like, oh geez, that's kind of funny. I mean, we don't play that game, but
I was going to say now, like next time I go over, I'm going to try to find your like marble wall.
We do not have marbles in our house.
We can probably just edit all of that.
Oh no, that stays.
No, like
no.
Well, that's pretty much it on my questions. Did you guys want to add anything else before we close out?
I mean, to everybody that is struggling or discerning about NFP or just learning about it, wherever you are in your journey, just know we're praying for you. And, we know what it's like. It's a weird and interesting and difficult journey, but it's definitely fruitful. And, I wouldn't change how we did it, how we went through our NFP journey, like despite all the struggles, like just know that it's something that you do together with your spouse and it's something you'll have with you forever. And yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Just, happy Advent, everybody, or, Merry Christmas. And I think there's just so many parallels to draw, so many cool things to talk about in terms of like the gift that is, bringing a child into this world and just contemplating this great mystery that is God coming to us in the child Jesus, but like God wants to give you that great gift of his son and the gift of bearing life, and it's, I don't know, that's just a lot of the stuff I've been thinking about lately. And it's kind of overwhelming, so if anyone is in that boat and they're talking about that and praying about it with that spouse, like this is a really good season to just really listen to the Lord if he's calling you to this crazy, wonderful, awesome, stressful vocation that is parenthood. And we're just preparing for it. Like we haven't even met the kid yet. We really love it so much, but Advent's it's a really cool time for parents, young parents, so we're praying for y'all and please pray for us.
Well, thank you guys so much for being on the podcast.
Thanks for listening. I hope you have enjoyed our Advent series. If you haven't listened to our other episodes in this series, go back and start with NFP Brings Hope. This has been such a fun series to do, and I hope to do more series like this in the future. I want to wish you all a happy rest of the Advent season if you're listening to this before Christmas, and if you're listening after, Merry Christmas. There will not be an episode next week, but Charting Toward Intimacy will be back on January 4th with some very exciting announcements. Until next time.